But I shoot the walking spirit is difficult, dealing with all of the ignorance. But in the Bible, it's still talking about the Bible. What is the benefit? Everything about you counterfeit. There ain't no rebuttal you can counter with. On the internet, you the master teacher. In real life, you powerless. Keep it real with you, I don't have time for this. I ride for this, my forefathers died for this. They cry for this opportunity presently I possess, and right now you are the opposite. If you walk in love, you fulfill the law. Don't get involved and you ain't giving it all. If you ever think it's cool to threaten another man's family, then you already lost. Chemtrails got aluminum, heavy metal saturate the atmosphere. Manhattan Project, time travel, Mandela effect, what happened here? GMO food processing to the whole world become obsolete. A black man who believes in Jesus, got my own team taking shots at me. You trespassing on property that you don't fully understand properly. All the back and forth, that's not for me, that's for ROC and the War Machine. If we ride together, then we ride together. If we can't do it, I'd rather leave. I still stand on the word of God till the day I die and no longer breathe. We trapped inside the diaspora, nightmares of the massacre. Cold sweat, I'm below deck in the middle passage, just a passenger. Revolutionary hardcore, liberation, that's a hard job. You ain't ready, you a oddball, keep your mouth closed like lockjaw. I learned trying to bring people together on the same page, make them separate. All the talk about reconciliation, when the time come, you hesitate. If Jesus was able to sit at the table with a bunch of sinners, you very fake. Your steps ordered by the Lord, and how it was yesterday, a big mistake. We the city sitting on the hill. Guess it all depends on how you live. Guess it all depends on how you feel, and we both know that ain't God's will. I stood on what I felt was right, I don't never question if God's real. Trapped inside this matrix, I'm about to pop the red and the blue pill.
Bless them which persecute you, bless and curse not. Rejoice with them that do rejoice, and weep with them that weep. Be of the same mind one toward another. Mind not high things, but condescend to men of low estate. Be not wise in your own conceits. Recompense to no man evil for evil. Provide things honest in the sight of all men. If it be possible, as much as lieth in you, live peaceably with all men. Dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, said the Lord. Therefore, if thine enemy hunger, feed him. If he thirst, give him drink. For in so doing thou shalt heap coals of fire on his head. Be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. Romans 12:14-21.
You're not Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, you're not Manning. I am Peyton Manning level, I'm on GOAT status. I think I'm the baddest mother lover ever walk on this planet. Damn it, you could never see me, you could never beat me, you could never be me, disrespect me, and I'm eating all of your pizza. I know I'm not right, I know I'm not white, I know I'm gon' call the popo on you if you hit me. I don't fight, I'm a rapper, I don't write. Rio, you got all that hype, that's the stuff that I don't like. Why you laughing at my height? I wish I could slap your face. You just think you're so amazing, you just think that you're the greatest. Why you fucking Tom Brady? I am Peyton Manning, end of conversation. You just hating, I am Peyton Manning, say it. I am Peyton Manning, say it. No, Dibble God plan, that's a Drake line. Beat the midget up, that's a hate crime. 8 towns on 3 game time. Got the trunk knocking from the baseline. I'm all about the money, baby, crocker cake time. Chopsticks on deck, no Shanghai. 4-5, you come to my waistline. Keep the 4-5 tip by my waistline. You soft in the middle like fruit pie. I know it hard for you to walk a straight line. You wouldn't throw trays in the food fight. That's what I heard through the grapevine. I know you don't mind wasting your time. I would just prefer you didn't waste mine. You gon' get what coming to you in due time. Little pussycat running from the K9. You're not Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning. Manny, Peyton Manny. You're not Peyton Manny. You're not Peyton Manny. Peyton Manny. You're not Peyton Manny. You're not Peyton Manny. Peyton Manny. You ain't nowhere in my category, mandatory for me to tell you that you were very boring. And the moral of the story, I wish I could just ignore you, but I gotta burn your body, put you in the crematorium. And I'm the only audio inside the auditorium. And when I'm finished with you, you will not have no memorial. You wanna be Luigi, but you're not ready for Mario. And no scenario, running circles around your cardio. And that's a body blow, it's not a secret. Everybody know that you ain't coming close. I leave you comatose, and you become a ghost. I overdose, I gotta overload. That's when the windows of heaven open up for me with the overflow. And I can feel the power moving within every last chromosome. Battle right around the corner, you already know it's on. Understand me, you're not Peyton Manny. You're not Peyton Manny. Woo!
That was my cat.
Fine specimen.
I saw you knock him off the bar.
No, I kind of shoot him. I didn't really knock him.
You raised your hand at him.
Won't happen again, I promise you.
Hey, Martz, about another drink, huh?
That cat's been coming in here for 2 years. It's got more right to be here than you.
I don't want any trouble.
Well, that's too bad. 'Cause you
know who you are. Murderer of innocent travelers on the road. You are going to be held to account for the things you've done. Do you know that? Do you? It's okay. I'm going to grab my things. I'm going to walk out of here. All right, brother?
Yeah.
Cursed be the ground, for our sake. Both thorns and thistles it shall bring forth for us. For out of the ground we were taken, for the dust we are. And to the dust we shall return.
Peace, peace, peace. What it is your brother Tyvon Swinnell, a.k.a. the Orthodox Moor, a.k.a. the Seven Pillar Saracen, a.k.a. Brother Moore, wishing you all peace and blessings. This morning, hopefully I'll make it quick. This is going to be another installment of the Secret Santa Scholarship Series. Trying to raise the bar of scholarship in the community on all sides and not recognize secret scholarship as a standard. So getting into this, family, I'm going to speak on a new secret scholar that was introduced into the community a few months ago, but I recently found out that the secret scholar was introduced in a documentary. So I'm going to play the clip that made it into the documentary as the clip that made it to into the documentary is actually publicly available. It was actually an interview that was done that made it to 3 different channels on YouTube or whatnot. So this is publicly available information. So I'm gonna play the clip that made it to the documentary, and then speak on the clip and the secret scholar, etc., etc., etc. So one more time, just for clarity's sake. Yeah.
This, and I sent you the hypothetical.
Exactly.
And so let's kind of get into this. So there was one professor that made a statement, and I'm quoting him here. Now, I showed you the email from the other professor that said that it's not a West African script, even though it's evocative, which means it brings strong type of a strong resemblance, but it's not Arabic itself in any script, right? But in this, what does that statement mean when a professor looks at something that says this is an Arabic type of writing? Is he saying that it's Arabic, or is he saying this is just kind of similar? It looks like Arabic.
Say it again, William. What did he say exactly in his email? This is
on the screen. It says this is an Arabic type of writing.
Oh, so this is what he said. That's what you typed on the screen in the PowerPoint.
Yeah, I typed that in the PowerPoint. I was quoting what he said after he examined what he looked at. He said it's an Arabic type. Now, for me, when I look at that, and this is just my opinion, it's saying a type of, it looks like, but you're the professor, so you can let me know what does that statement mean when someone says a type of something?
I can't speak for him, but the only thing I'm getting from this is probably he's referring to the types of calligraphy, the styles of calligraphy. That this is a form of Arabic writing or of Arabic calligraphy. But, when we talk about Arabic as a language, it is written one way, in one way. We all write the same way,
Right.
We all have, let's say, if you're on a keyboard and you want to type, typing will look the same way. But the calligraphy art, is different from one type to another. So again, I'm just assuming that this is what he means by Arabic types of writing, that is Arabic styles of calligraphy,
Gotcha. Okay, so let's move on here. Let's move to the hypothetical, because we wanted to cover all bases. So, and I want to quote what you said in your email. You said, I am hesitant to agree with the hypothetical image. The name of the surah 114 is Al-Nas. In Arabic, it looks this way. And of course, brother, and I think this is the sin. Am I correct here?
Yes, that's the last one. Yeah. So we start from right to left. Yes, sir.
Right. We read from right to left. So, and then you say the letters in the markings are not connected as they should in Arabic. A native speaker of Arabic wouldn't write it that way. Also, people write verses from surahs and not the names of surahs. What did you mean by that, Professor?
So, again, the two reasons that I gave, one is a linguistic reason, and one is a cultural reason, The first one, like I mentioned, it's not connected, and we can talk about that later. But the second one is more of a cultural, let's say, and then here we're talking about, Arabic in connection to Islam, most, if not all, writings on any kind of artifact, wood, leather, gold, silver, stones, whatever it is, when you look at it in the Muslim world, it's either the name of God, the name of the Prophet, praises of God or praises of the Prophet, or verses, verses from the Quran, sentences. In the Quran is I'm sure Mr. William. It's a book of chapters, and each chapter we call it a surah. So a chapter, let's say, is the modern way of calling it. In Islam, we call it surah. A verse, we call it ayah in Arabic. Yeah, that's a verse. And that's what people will write on their artifacts, because the verse is what's important to them, not the name of the chapter, not the name of the surah. For example, An-Nas is one of the most important, not to say that the other ones are not important, but one of the most important surahs in the Quran, because it's short. It's very short. It's a short. Every kid in the Arab or Muslim world will know it by heart. It's one of those first surahs that you learn as a kid. So again, for anybody who's Muslim, I don't see why they will write the name and not write the whole chapter, because it's just like 2 verses or 3 verses. It is very short, or at least they can write a verse from it. And there are very important verses in this surah that can be written in calligraphy that people will have in their houses, will have in their offices, will have give as gift, whatever the case is. But I have never seen an artifact where the only scripture, the writing on it, is a name of the chapter.
Wow.
It's not. People don't do that,
Wow.
And I'm talking like I'm sure, like if I ask you, for example, about what Christian people will have written from the Bible on their artifact at home, you will definitely tell me some very famous things that people will have either as pictures or as writing, in their houses. And for Muslims, what they will have are verses, names of God, name of the Prophet, praises, but not the name of the of the chapter, because what is it for? What is it?
Yep, that was very, very interesting, family. So we're gonna unpack that a little bit, and also unpack some of the claims that were made based off of what the professor said on the YouTube channels. They're calling him Professor Yosef in parentheses, and saying he's an Arabic linguist. Amongst other things, I'll show you where he's being claimed to be an Arabic, French, Farsi, and a Jami linguist. But yeah, let me get into this this presentation right quick, so I don't got to keep y'all for too long. Again, one more time, fam. No secret Santa scholarship, please. When we were children, a lot of us, walked away from the belief of things like Santa Claus and all them kind of things. As adults, we definitely shouldn't be holding them kind of standards to the scholarship that we deal with. No scholastic Santa Clauses or whatnot. No secret Santas. No scholastic tooth fairies and whatnot. Right now, we got to keep it real, fam. We owe it to ourselves and to our children and to the people coming after them something way more solid than Secret Santa scholarship. Because when we offer Secret Santa scholarship to the people, we get stuff like this, right? We get people celebrating holidays that should not ever be created, right? Like Merry Catsmas and whatnot, right? You got annual holidays set up to secret scholars at this juncture, fam. That's exactly why this needs to be dealt with. Not only that, people are citing secret scholars as reasons to not show scholarship. No, we need to protect our people because of what happened to Cats, as if Cats was a real individual. There's people who think who aren't sure if Cats are real or not. And you know what? I can understand that, because a lot of people are hearing conflicting information from people they trust. And when you're hearing conflicting information from people you trust, it's hard to verify what's going on, right? Which is why at the outset of the Cats controversy, at the outset of it, a year ago, I came out and publicly stipulated and asked Maury Brown, if Katz is real, I'm not saying you got to come out and have a phone call with him or bring him on the live or show his face or none of that type of stuff. If Katz is real, and he's the scholar you're saying he is, and he has a scholastic authority to declare that there is no Arabic on the pews, then all I need to see, family, is his published scholastic work. That's all I need to see. And that will be enough for me, particularly in the field that we're talking about. And that would be enough for me. A year has gone by and no such scholastic work has been produced. Anonymous Hebrew and I came out in January, either January or February, and stipulated if that scholastic work was not produced, we would not be able to stand with our brothers and say that Katz was real. And in fact, we would know that he was not real. In fact, we would know he is not real. So again, a year later, that scholastic information has not been produced. And now people are literally having annual holidays based upon secret scholars. People aren't going to take us seriously in that situation. I consistently say my game plan is to build a wall with one hand and to protect it with the other. And that my goal is for when my people walk down the street, they are safe when they do. They are safe when they do so. And you accomplish that safety by two things, either respect or through fear. People can't respect secret scholarship, man. And when you offer them secret scholarship, you can't then try to make them submit through fear and try to gaslight them. People aren't going to respond to that. And if they do, they're going to look at these people gaslighting because they don't want to deal with reality and truth. You can't take them seriously. They got their head in the clouds. They're playing an elaborate game of dress up. They'll tell their kids not to believe in fairy tales, but they'll present secret scholarship to the world like they should stand on it. And that's why this series is going to be done. And for all the Israelite families, like, oh no, how dare you talk about other Israelites? If it's all good when I talk about Christians in this manner, then it better be all good when I talk about Israelites in this manner. If integrity doesn't go both ways, then it's not integrity, fam. One more time, if integrity does not go both ways, then it is not integrity. And with the people I'm dealing with here on the secret scholarship aspects, I've tried to deal with them via Matthew 18, behind closed doors with other people. And now at this juncture, it's time to make my case to the ecclesia, to the assembly, to the people. Am I going to go on a campaign? No, I'm making my videos and I'm done with it, fam. Because the truth is what it is. The truth knocks the brain out of falsehood every time. And the falsehood here is that secret scholarship should be considered to be a standard. And there's no way, shape, or form that it should be. No way, shape, or form that it should be. But with that, family, let's really get into this. Lumps of coal from the Secret Santa Scholarship, right? So, very recently, I was able to watch the Reclaiming the Throne documentary series, part 1, 2, and 3, that Benaiah and his crew are working on very hard and whatnot. Beautiful documentary. It looks fantastic. Pastor Kelly, Benaiah, and Maury Brown appeared in the first and third installment of the series. What I'm about to deal with right now was put in the third installment, episode 3 of the series. The interview that made it to the clip in the documentary, that's in the third installment. And again, that video clip can be seen on a multitude of channels. You can see it on Maury Brown's channel. You can see it on We Woke Now. You can see it on Benaiah Israel's channel. Again, those are all publicly available. So I want to be clear, family. Super, super, super clear. I'll probably say this a couple of times. I'm not taking a shot at the documentary in any way, shape, or form. As a matter of fact, I recommend that everybody go rent the documentary to see if what I'm saying is correct or incorrect. And as a matter of fact, I actually really liked the second episode. There was a lot of, I don't agree with everything in it, but there was a lot of good information. I think it was the best sourced episode out of all three. I think it had the most scholastic information out of all three. And I'm definitely not calling for a boycott of the documentary in any way, shape, or form. I don't agree with a lot of information in it, and I hope that the brothers and sisters that were involved in the documentary see this information, put out another documentary, and just have better information and more correct information on certain topics. But there are definitely aspects of the documentary I thoroughly enjoyed. So again, I'm recommending everyone go rent the documentary and go see if what I'm saying is true for yourself. Now, what I'm talking about is important to understand in chronology, because part one of the documentary, when you understand the chronology, was most likely recorded like a couple years ago. When you see the clips that are in the documentary, etc. A lot of it, at least the part where like Pastor Kelly's involved, etc. That's a clip from like a couple years ago, right? Part three, in part one, they're dealing with, again, the part of where Kelly's involved. They're dealing with First African Baptist Church. They talk about the pews and a whole bunch of other things having to do with the church and whatnot, and culture and all kinds of stuff. In between part one and part three, a PBS documentary comes out to where Henry Louis Gates goes down to First African Baptist Church, and with Harvard scholar Boubacar Diakite, a brother from Mali, he says that there's an Arabic type of writing on the pews. And so in the third installment of the documentary, there is a scholastic pushback from Morey Brown, etc., about the pews, B'nai Israel, etc. So they give their argument as to why the PBS documentary is incorrect. And so in that, they bring out this secret scholar, i.e. Professor Yosef, as an Arabic linguist. And he's supposed to be debunking the PBS claims, and then also debunking the hypothetical situation put forth by Abu. And this gets real important to understand because, and you just heard it there, the hypothetical is incorrect. Abu did not propose that a title of a surah was written on a pew. He proposed that potentially, and again, he doesn't back that Arabic is on the pews, but as a hypothetical, to show how one is supposed to prove a linguistic hypothetical, he put forth a string of characters that were intelligible, to the point to where he's saying, okay, like one potentially could see this as the third ayat of Surah 114, a verse from the Quran, which is exactly what the secret scholar Professor Yosef actually said, that on important things you would expect to see verses of the Quran, etc., etc., etc. So there's not only a secret scholar being brought out, but there's a misrepresentation of a hypothetical position, and a secret scholar giving an opinion on a false hypothetical. So that's not even fair to the secret scholar that they brought out. And that really needs to be understood, fam. But going forward, yeah, I pray everyone check out the Black Church documentary so you can kind of be caught up as to what is being said there. And I'll get into a compare and contrast later on in another video. But I'm not going to do that here just for sake of time. Just for sake of time. And again, as a disclaimer, go see the documentary for yourself. I will be doing a full breakdown of the portion of again, Morey Brown's portion, Kelly Richardson's portion, and B'nai Israel's portion, as it has to do with the pews, etc. This is not a shot at the documentary in any way, shape, or form. I am not calling for a boycott of the documentary in any way, shape, or form. Again, I am asking that you go rent the documentary and verify my claims. Again, one more time, I really like parts of the second episode. We're going further. We got lumps of coal for William Brown. Yet another scholar was brought to the people. A Moroccan man called Professor Yosef was claimed in the documentary to be an Arabic linguist. However, on the full interview, the professor claims to be a sociolinguist that studied code switching and gender. Sociolinguistics is the study of language in relation to social factors, including differences of regional, class, and occupational dialect, gender differences in bilingualism. The new secret scholar has said in the documentary to confirm that Arabic writing is supposed to connect. However, in the full interview, Professor Yosef confirms that not all letters connect in Arabic writing. And his own email, that I'm about to show in a second, reflects such that not all Arabic connects when you write it. So there's a mischaracterization as to what the professor is even saying. So not only is he given a false hypothetical, what he's saying is being mischaracterized to the people. And again, all you got to go do is go watch the full interview to see if I'm correct or incorrect. Go watch the whole thing. You can go see it on all three of their channels. I don't know if the full interview is still up on Maury Brown's, but I know part 1's still up. Ironically, in the documentary and in the full interview, William Brown asked Professor Yosef to comment on Boubacar Diakite's statement from the PBS documentary, Arabic type of writing. Professor Yosef said that he assumed Arabic calligraphy was meant. So again, the guy that they're bringing on to disprove the Arabic concept is literally confirming that his assumption is that when Boubacar Diakite says Arabic type of writing, he means Arabic calligraphy. That needs to be clearly understood. And before I go any further, there's going to be a lot of people listening who think, oh, this is an Arabic versus Hebrew concept. No. Don't listen to the gaslighting family. Me and my brother, Anonymous Hebrew, were in this conversation since August of 2019, before Boo or anyone else got into this. And we were playing information, and we were speaking on information, and I played information in a previous video that broke down that when Anonymous went down to the church in 2019, August of 2019, that they were telling him, the tour guides were saying that it was Hebrew and Arabic on the pews, and that they spoke a trade language coming off of the slave ships, and that they had been speaking this mixture of Hebrew and Arabic and dealing with that over in Africa, which is more than 100% consistent with the source that Dante brought out, that Anonymous and I both cited in our interviews at the beginning of the year in January and February. So Dante, the king of receipts, is bringing out a source stipulating that in West Africa, in southern Nigeria, that they were speaking a mixture of Maghrebi Arabic, Hebrew, and Patois. Maghrebi Arabic, Hebrew, and Patois. So there's nothing about what the tour guide said that's scholastically inconsistent. This whole bit about, oh, well, the church website says this. Okay, the website is not showing in any way, shape, or form that when it declares either cursive Hebrew or Arabic or anything or any language, that it's doing so based upon any form of scholarship. And it's definitely not citing that any claim of Hebrew or Arabic or anything is going back to the people who set up the church, going back to the originators and founders of the church and any of their church documentation. So we all need to get out of our feelings and recognize that, just like Pastor Kelly said, just like Abu said, and what I'm saying, anybody making any claim of any language on the pews needs to put forth a scholastic argument for such. You can't just claim it and expect people to believe you for it. No, that's not how it works. That's not how scholarship works. And it needs to be done in a slow manner, right? So for instance, my brother and I, Anonymous Hebrew, we speak about the fact that we believed, and we've been saying this consistently for a year now, that we believe, over a year as a matter of fact, that we believe that there's multiple African scripts written on those pews, including Hebrew, including cursive Hebrew at that. We talk about block letter and cursive Hebrew, but people get confused into thinking that Soletreo is the only form of cursive Hebrew, and it's not. And it's not. If you think it is, then I'm politely and respectfully asking you to pump the brakes, slow down a little bit, and listen with both ears. Let's take the emotion out the conversation and really deal with the scholarship. Because anybody putting forth any linguistic claim needs to be able to prove the claim or put forth a scholastic argument just to respect the people who built the church, because we don't know what their thoughts on the pews were. And since we don't know what they have to say about it, we can't put words in their mouth. And so we show respect with scholarship, not with gaslighting. Also in the documentary and full interview, William Brown presents a false hypothesis passed off as Abu's hypothesis. The professor is asked to comment on, again, I said this before, but the professor is asked to comment on a hypothetical of the name of Surah 114 being on the pews. Again, the name of Surah 114 being on the pews. Abu's hypothetical scenario was a verse from the Quran, Surah 114, Ayat 3 being on the pews, stipulating reading the God of humanity or the God of mankind. Now, again, one more time, Abu does not think that that's actually on the pews. Abu's position is that there is no discernible language on the pews. I am the only one in the community that has come out and said, I believe that that ayat is on the pew, that one particular pew. But I've also come out and said that each pew needs to be taken on a case-by-case, marking-by-marking basis so that we don't miss any particular language that belonged to one of our ancestors. Because they went through the painstaking labor of going through blood, sweat, and tears of putting their language on the pews for posterity. So we need to find out all of them, all the languages, and not try to pigeonhole this into is this either Hebrew or Arabic? That's a false dichotomy. Because you know what? Before either claim was made about Hebrew or Arabic, they were talking about it being African kinds of writings. So we can't rule out African scripts, etc. So if you say just all cursive Hebrew, now you're not looking for the African script. If you say it's just all Arabic, now you're not looking for the other African scripts. If you say it's just all African scripts, now you're not looking for the Hebrew or the Arabic. That's not fair to our ancestors. And again, let's say there is Ge'ez on the pews. Now we're denying a very integral part of the slave trade that no one talks about, which is the East African aspect of it. And we could be focusing on all of that. So if there's Ge'ez on the pews and Arabic on the pews and Hebrew on the pews and different African scripts, etc., whatnot, that tells a big story. Why? And that's why that church is a treasure trove and a national treasure, because we could potentially use that if all those different scripts are there and they can be verified. And they can be verified. That one church and those pews are like an international set of fingerprints documenting the different migration patterns of our people through the slave trade. That linked with the Gullah language and the Gullah dialect and the 21 different tribes and languages that went into making that, fam, you have a full repository of the language and migration patterns of the people that went through slavery. That's a gold mine, fam. For people who whether you're waking up to being an Israelite or anything else, fam, you can connect yourself back. You can find out who you were when you came off the slave ships. That's a big deal, fam. That's a big deal. On top of that, we get to see these different tribes with Congo scripts, with potentially Amharic scripts, Ge'ez scripts, etc., potentially Arabic scripts, potentially Hebrew scripts, potentially African scripts, working together to free other slaves. There's a lesson in that we still need to apply. Because right here and right now, we're talking about Hebrew versus Arabic. We got two Semitic languages trying to go against each other. And when that's a false dichotomy, that's a shame, fam. That is an utter shame. Again, ironically, in the documentary and full interview, Professor Yosef says that praises of God, praises of the prophet, or verses of the Quran would be written on important objects. Again, Surah 114, Ayat 3 is just that, a verse from the Quran. William Brown in the documentary and in the full interview never mentions to Professor Yosef that other scholars such as Jeffrey Kahn not only confirmed Arabic, but also confirmed Surah 114 ayat 3 on the pew. It was also not mentioned that scholars such as Samar Ali said it looked like West African Arabic and possibly a 3-word snippet of Surah 114. That's nowhere in the documentary, so there's no opposing view given in the documentary. Now, for all the hoopla about oh no, Abu's trying to prove Arabic on the pews. No, he's not. No, he's not. And you please listen to this, because he's being a proper skeptic about his own view about the thing, right? Because he's falsifying his own view. Abu thinks there is no discernible language on the pews. And then when he put forth an argument for Arabic, he went and sought out people that are now proving his argument to be incorrect. When Jeffrey Kahn says that there's Arabic on the pews, that goes against Abu's argument, not for it. When Samar Ali Khan says, or Samar Ali says that it possibly looks like West African Arabic and could possibly be a snippet of Surah 114, that does not go in Abu's direction. That goes against his argument. He's falsifying his own argument. So he's publicly, all the scholars that he's shown are scholars that he's trying to falsify his own argument with. You cannot show William Brown, Benaiah Israel, or Kelly Richardson showing you people falsifying their positions. Scholars falsifying their positions. No. They're showing you secret scholars that are trying to confirm their position. Secret scholars. And they'll either bring out a secret scholar or they'll misrepresent the scholar like they did with Eunice, or they'll do both like they're doing here. A secret scholar that they're misrepresenting. Again, a secret scholar, Professor Yosef, who they're misrepresenting in terms of, one, in the full interview, he does say that there's, I think, 8 Arabic letters that do not connect sometimes, etc. whatnot, right? And then in his email, which I'll show, it shows that Arabic letters do not always connect. It shows it in the Arabic that he cites in the email. And then he's given a false hypothetical in terms of a name of the surah versus a verse from the surah being on the pews. So they're misrepresenting the hypothetical to him and misrepresenting his position to the people. William Brown's section of the documentary never states that he contacted people involved in the PBS documentary, right? So they're bringing this guy on to go at the PBS documentary, the information, right? But they never tell the guy, or they never tell the people who are watching the documentary that they're asking people to pay for with this information. They don't say in that same documentary that William Brown contacted the producers of the PBS documentary and that they confirmed that Boubacar Diakite translated other phrases on the pews in Arabic, such as "There is no God but Allah" and "Muhammad is the messenger of God." Abu also gave a hypothetical rendering of a pew for La ilaha illallah. There is no God but Allah. As a matter of fact, hold on right quick. Hold on right quick. Let me do it like this. As a matter of fact, I'm going to real time do some editing real quick and give you the blank pew. That is believed to have La ilaha illallah on it. And what's crazy about this pew is this portion here is thought to have La ilaha illallah on it. This is a picture that Anonymous took when he was down in Georgia in 2019, or down at the church in Georgia in 2019. And I told him right off rip when I saw that, I was like, bro, I see Allah right over here, bro. I see Allah right over here, bro. But on top of that, this bit over here might be a whole nother language. This might be Ge'ez script. Because Ephraim Isaac, when in a whole nother documentary, Cryptic Quest, he said he potentially saw letters like this that were Ge'ez letters and went on another pew. But same markings. Same markings. So again, go listen to the interview for yourself, man. While it's still up. And on Maury Brown's page itself, this is how part 1 is titled: Interview Professor and Linguist of Arabic, French, Farsi, Ajami, and more. Your man is a linguistic Superman. That's how it's being pushed off, right? Professor and Linguist of Arabic, French, Farsi, Ajami, and more. Now, I found that to be interesting because he literally says in the interview, well, you know what? I'll break that down in a second. But again, Professor Yosef does not claim to be a linguist of Arabic, French, Farsi, Ajami, etc. He claims he is a sociolinguist. One more time, he claims to be a sociolinguist. And I'll get into that even more so in a second. And it's actually sad, too, because as a sociolinguist, the concept of code switching and all them kind of things would have been very beneficial to have in this conversation concerning the fact that dissecting the Gullah language is something that a sociolinguist does. Something like that, right? So where you're talking about multiple languages coming together to make one language. That's what a sociolinguist would deal with. I.e., and I'll play it here in a second, where he talks about dealing with the languages of Morocco, like and the code switching in Morocco of and I do believe, and I'll show here. Again, this is the screenshot of my man being said that he's a professor and linguist of all these languages, etc., whatnot, right? But I do believe that he knows that he got an undergraduate in Arabic and he got an undergraduate in French, because he speaks on dealing with the code switching in Morocco. And so French, Arabic, and Berber are like the 3 main languages there. You're going to find Spanish there and some other stuff, but I mean, it's not as much as you're going to find French and Arabic and Berber. But this is Professor Yosef, or Yosef, however you want to say it, right? This is his bio. I've blocked out his last name so as to not to dox the brother. I'm also going to play a lecture he gave from his university, where I'm also going to clip out the parts where it speaks about his university, so he's not doxed. Because the last thing I want to be accused of is doxing the brother, when I want you to pay attention to what's being said and what he's claiming and all that kind of stuff. And the fact that I'm actually going to verify that you'll be able to verify it through voice recognition that this is the man that was on the interview with Maury Brown. And I'll play that. I'll play him speaking about his credentials on the interview, and I'll play his lecture from the university when this is all done. But he's telling you here that Mr. Yosef is a lecturer of Arabic. So that is his position. He is a lecturer and a professor of Arabic. 100%. No one is denying that, right? Any way, shape, or form. But he tells you in the interview that his relation to a Farsi and Ajami is only in the fact that he can read the Arabic script. And so he could read the Arabic script of how Farsi and Ajami is written, but he couldn't tell you what it necessarily says. And that's an important point, because he says that in the interviews and whatnot. And if I'm wrong, please just go verify the interviews and let me know I'm wrong down below and timestamp it. I will definitely go apologize in public for what I'm talking about, fam. But again, Mr. Yosef is a lecturer of Arabic. He received his BA in sociolinguistics from Hassan University in Casablanca, Morocco, and his master's in humanity with a concentration in linguistics from the University of Louisville in Kentucky. Prior to arriving at Blank University, Mr. Blank held full-time positions at Eckerd College and at the University of Tampa. Mr. Yosef's areas of interest range from Arabic language and literature, language, gender, code switching, and comparative literature. So none of that is West African Arabic, and people need to understand that, and really need to understand what I'm about to say here. So in the Arabic world, Moroccan Arabic is singular in and of itself, in the sense to where like most people cannot understand Moroccans who are not from Morocco. Like their Arabic sounds really different. And if you want to get technical, from Morocco all the way to Egypt, there's a little bit of a different sound to it, right? And a lot of people like to say, well, that's the Maghreb, Maghrebi Arabic. Yeah, but there's different forms of Maghrebi Arabic in and of itself, right? So you have Moroccan Arabic, Tunisian Arabic, Libyan Arabic, Algerian Arabic, all that type of stuff, right? But when you get down past a certain point, like when you get past southern Morocco, you get into Mauritania and going into West Africa, now you get a whole nother kind of Arabic called Hassania Arabic. Hassania Arabic. You see where it says Hassan University? Well, there was a group of Arabic speaking people of a tribe by that name, Hassan, that came over into West Africa and North Africa. And their form of Arabic was the dominant form that stayed in West Africa. So from Timbuktu and all from Mauritania to Timbuktu to Nigeria to Senegal, that's all Hassani Arabic, fam. And so he says in the interview that not only would you need, and I'm kind of jumping the gun here, but not only would you need someone who can read the script but know what language the script is written in, because Ajami is not just Arabic; it is the Arabic script used to write African languages with. And so, in order for him to be claimed to be a linguist of Ajami, he would also have to be able to deal with the African languages, right? And that's not the case. The case is he can read the Arabic script, and so he could tell you, oh, this is this Arabic letter, this is this Arabic letter, but he couldn't tell you what the language is that it's being written in. And the same thing with Farsi. He can tell you this is the Arabic letter, this is the Arabic letter here, there, whatever, but he couldn't tell you what's being said in Farsi. That's very important to understand because he's being passed off as a super linguist, and that's not the case. Sociolinguists typically do know multiple languages. That's very common. But there would be like they study languages that go together for a reason, right? Like, so again, he's talking about like in Morocco, he again most likely got an undergraduate in French, and most likely got an undergraduate in Arabic, potentially even Berber if they teach it at the colleges there, right? But he said he grew up speaking Berber first language, right? So I don't know if they teach it in a Hassani University as a Berber as a written and oral language. If they do, he probably got an undergraduate in that as well. And I will show later, like that I contacted a man who was a sociolinguist, Dr. Brian Kirsch and whatnot. And again, he was a sociolinguist who studied multiple languages, got undergraduates in multiple languages, but the languages that he was specifically trying to compare and contrast, like Spanish, Arabic, and Hebrew, dealing with the Iberian texts and whatnot. Going forward. Again, as a sociolinguist, it is safe to say that Professor Yosef has an undergraduate in Arabic and French. However, nothing indicates any degrees in Ajami or Farsi. Neither would play a role in his fields of interest in Morocco. They don't use Ajami in Morocco. They don't use Farsi in Morocco. However, published scholastic work can always be provided to the contrary. So if I'm wrong about this, and he is a linguist in Ajami and Farsi, then all you got to do is just provide his published works on it, and I will stand corrected, and I will publicly correct myself. Again, Brian Kirshen, PhD, Binghamton University, New York. He has undergraduates in Spanish, Hebrew, and Arabic, and these are his fields of study: sociolinguistics, contact linguistics, language variation, documentary linguistics, language ideologies, Sephardic studies, and Al-Hamiado texts. Right, Al-Hamiado text. So again, Sephardic studies, you're going to deal with Spanish and Hebrew and Arabic. Al-Hamiado, you're going to deal with all those again. Al-Hamiado are texts of the Latin languages, right, written in the Arabic script, and this would include Ladino. This would include Ladino or the Hebrew Spanish language. But again, it's common that the sociolinguist will get the undergraduate in multiple languages, but the languages are going to be in the field that they're going into in terms of their comparison and the code switching, etc. So in Morocco, they code switch between French, Berber, Arabic, etc. In the Iberian Peninsula, in the old Sephardic text and the Al-Hamiado text, they're dealing with Spanish, Hebrew, Arabic. So again, this is all relevant. Now, getting into the hypothetical that Professor Yosef responded to, again, he's saying, I'm hesitant to agree with the hypothetical image. The name of the Surah 114 is Al-Nas. In Arabic, it looks this way. Now, right off rip, let me deal with the Arabic part, right? So you can see here that the first and the last letter are not connected. The first and the last letter are not connected. And the last letter, the scene here, is definitely part of the previous letters in terms of the word, nas, right? So the mankind or the humanity, right? Al-nas, right? So nas is definitely one word. And the scene, the S for the nas, is not connected. So, and again, the same, the first letter for al and al is not connected. So again, so you have the aleph and the llama disconnected, and you have the scene disconnected, etc. Right? So it's Anyway, going further and to the previous part, talking about the name of the surah. The letters in the markings are not connected as they should in Arabic. A native speaker of Arabic wouldn't write it that way. Also, people write verses from the surah, not the names of the surahs. So again, he's being told that this is the name of the surah in the previous email and not the ayat from the surah. He's commenting on it being a name. And again, family, this is how easy it is to disprove this. All they have to do is show the original email where he's being told that this is an ayah and not the name of the surah, a verse from the surah and not the name of the surah. But again, he's responding to it being told to him that it's a name and not the surah. So he's saying, yeah, you don't write the name, you write the verses. And again, ayat 3 is a verse from Surah 114. Is a verse. And again, in his own email, he's confirming that the letters don't always connect. And even more so, a native speaker of Arabic wouldn't write it that way. So again, just remember, so when Anonymous went down to the church, he's being told about a trade language, right? So with a trade language, native speakers aren't necessarily using Arabic. In a trade language, let's say there's Hebrew, let's say there's Ge'ez, let's say there's Insibity, and let's say there's Arabic in this trade language. Insibity uses singular symbols, no cursive. Hebrew is written singular letters. You can write a cursive not, right? Now, even the cursive can be written singular letters. Ge'ez, same thing, written singular letters, right? Now, out of the 3 Semitic scripts, 2 of them are written consistently in single letters, right? Without the cursive markings or connecting cursive. So in a trade language, you connect with what's common and you drop what's uncommon. So if the cursive part of the Arabic is uncommon to the rest of the Semitic languages, you drop it to make it common. You drop it to make it common. And so nothing about this conversation in the entirety of the conversation with Professor Yosef, none of it deals with the trade language concept or the trade language argument. And again, that argument was, again, so check this out. They don't, nowhere in the documentary or in the pushback from PBS or in anything that Benaya or Maury Brown or Pastor Kelly put out, are they dealing with anything that Anonymous Hebrew, again, Anonymous Hebrew has a BA in religion and is literate in Hebrew, went down there reading and writing Hebrew. Went down there reading it off the pews, fam. Got video of him doing it, identifying the letters and whatnot, right? Pictures of him doing it. He came back and right off it was like, yeah, okay. So yeah, I can see this, I can see that. I think that there's Arabic on there. I think that there's Hebrew on there. He was saying, I can see a cursive Hebrew right there. But neither one of us agree on we don't think that Soletreo is on the pews. Due to time and proximity, we have a whole argument for that, right? But none of that's being dealt with in any way, shape, or form because there's this emotional pushback on, we got to make sure it's not Arabic. It's got to be, it can't be Arabic. It can't be Arabic. We got to do better than that, fam. We got to do better than that, fam. We got to be fair about how we're presenting these arguments to the people, fam. So what's the scholarly consensus on the pews? Again, Professor Yosef is a lecturer of Arabic. He's not like some super Arabic linguist in the sense to where he knows the calligraphy and the ajami and all them. No. He's particular with Moroccan Arabic, okay? He can read and write basic Arabic, like the script, right? No worries about that. And the Arabic he's familiar with is the Moroccan Arabic. And even then, he's not completely familiar with Moroccan calligraphy. So having him trying to speak on a whole other set of calligraphy, much less the West African kind, that's a bit of a stretch there, fam. Bit of a stretch. But again, he confirmed that verses from the Quran would be written on important objects. He also confirmed that Arabic does not always connect, and illustrated such in his email. He assumed that Arabic type of writing meant Arabic calligraphy. And on top of all that, he was given a false premise and commented on such. And his views were misrepresented. Professor Yosef is said to rule out ajami, i.e., the Arabic script used to write African languages. However, the professor noted that the standard Arabic script is different than Arabic calligraphy, especially styles of calligraphy hundreds or 1,000 years old. You would need first someone who knows the style of calligraphy, the specific style, and then you would need someone who could decode it. And particularly with the ajami, because again, you're using the Arabic script to write another language, so you definitely need someone to decode it. Also of note, Professor Yosef was not able to fully read the Moroccan Arabic calligraphy above the door in Morocco, in Mogador. He said he would need more time to decode what was written. This is a whole different style than West African Arabic calligraphy, fam. So if he couldn't read that and read the whole thing right on the spot, but could just outright just dismiss the hypotheticals he was looking at on the pews, that doesn't make consistent sense to me. That doesn't make consistent sense. To be clear, Professor Yosef is not a calligrapher. He is not a calligrapher and has no published works to speak of, period, much less any relevant published works on any topic relevant to this discussion. So keep that in mind. He has no published works anywhere. Neither him nor Katz have any published works. Now, I'm not saying this guy is fake, like he doesn't exist. Katz, I'm saying, does not exist. This guy, I confirm. I'm telling you he exists. But I'm saying he's being presented in a secret way to where you can't get a hold of him. And you can't confirm or deny what he's saying. And on top of that, he's being given a false hypothetical and being misrepresented in his opinions that he's given to the people. Again, we're talking about the scholarly consensus on the pews, right? This is Associate Professor of Arabic Language, Arabic Literature, and Middle Eastern Studies, Samar Ali, said that it looked like Arabic in the West African script that could possibly be a 3-word snippet of the 114th surah of the Quran. All he had was a single picture of the pew to deal with. Blank picture of the pew. Or it's not blank, excuse me. I think it was a blank picture plus the highlighted picture that Abu sent. And again, Abu sending this information out and contacting these people is him falsifying his own position, proving his own position wrong. Please show me anyone but Naya, Maury Brown, Pastor Kelly doing the same thing. This is the email, right? He breaks down the whole breakdown of 114, right? 114 is very short. I seek refuge with the Lord of humanity, in the name of God, merciful to all, compassionate to each, the King of humanity, the God of humanity. whispers in the hearts of humanity, of gin and humanity. His education is PhD in Arabic literature, master's in Arabic studies, BA in psychology. Publication. He has published works on Arabic literature salons in Islamic Middle Ages, poetry, public performance, and the presentation of the past. Calico Journal, special issue on Hebrew and Arabic. Yeah. Articles have appeared in the Oxford Encyclopedia of Islam and Women, Encyclopedia of Islam, Journal of Arabic and Islamic Studies, and Journal of Arabic Literature, right? But he got published works, right? Cat's got no published works. Even though those other guys he got no published works. So we're talking about people who are not all scholars are on the same level, fam. And you really start to see where people are when their work gets published, because you can start to scrutinize their scholarship. That's very important. Dr. Jeffrey Kahn positively identified Arabic letters on one pew, one of the pews. He also positively identified Surah 114, Ayat 3 from the Quran on the same pew. Dr. Jeffrey Kahn also positively ruled out Hebrew on the one pew. So on that one pew, he's saying, yep, that's Arabic. And it's Surah 114, Ayat 3. And no, it is not Hebrew on that one pew. Dr. Jeffrey Kahn had access to only photos of a single pew. Yeah, these are his emails. Dear Adele, thank you very much for your message and for the photos of pews in Savannah. The writing is Arabic and contains verses 2 and 3 from final chapter surah of the Quran. The text visible in the photo reads in Arabic, "Sovereign of mankind, the God of mankind." When do you think this was written on the pews? Was it written by the slaves? Who built it? Best wishes, Jeffrey. Again, that's back December 14th, last year, fam. So again, Abu asked him in a return fire email, "Are you sure it's not Hebrew?" And the dude comes back, the writing is clearly Arabic and it's clearly from the Quran. The final surah, Surah Al-Nas, it is certainly not Hebrew. Do you know where the slaves came from originally? Like, so this is how you know it's on some scholastic stuff, because the scholars like, I want to know what's popping. And for Dr. Jeffrey Kahn, FYI, the vast majority of slaves came from the rice coast of Africa. So you're getting people from mostly from Sierra Leone, all the way to Nigeria. So we know that the people that were there, there was 10 tribes that contributed Arabic words, from the Hausa to the Wolof to the Bambara to the Fulani to the Mandingo, Mende, the Vai, the Yoruba, and I feel like I'm missing one, but yes, sir. Those 10 tribes for sure, coming from Sierra Leone all the way to Nigeria. Now, again, Jeffrey Kahn studied for a BA degree in Semitic languages: Hebrew, Aramaic, Arabic, Akkadian, and Ethiopic. Right? That's where he got his undergraduate in those languages. Yeah, that's his field study, just Semitic languages, period. And he gets down in that field very, very thick and heavy. Very, very thick and heavy. These are his published works. Right now, this isn't even a full list. This is the topics that he deals with. If I showed you a list, it'd be crazy. It'd be crazy. In the field of Arabic, he publishes in Arabic, Hebrew, and other things. Just watch. And in the field of Arabic, his main published research has been on medieval Arabic documents. He has edited various corpora of documents, including Arabic papyri from early Islamic Egypt, documents from early Islamic Khorasan, and documents from Fatimid and Ayyubid Egypt that have been preserved in the Cairo Geniza. He is currently working on documents from the Fatimid period that were discovered in Qasr Ibrahim in Nubia by the Egypt Exploration Society. He also works on some aspects of the history of the Arabic language, in particular the development of Judeo-Arabic. Judeo-Arabic at various historical periods, including the modern spoken varieties on which he has carried out field work. So he's carried out field work on Judeo-Arabic, which is one of the many things I talk about, right? In relation to the pews. So we got, Abu's reaching out to people who are published, right? And falsifying his information. So that needs to be taken into account. The other brothers I'm talking about, they're not reaching out to anybody who's published to falsify their information. Now, Bunis was definitely a published scholar and whatnot, right? A very well-known published scholar and whatnot. But again, Bunis said that they were mischaracterizing what he was saying and did not confirm Sola Trail on the pews at all. Did not confirm Sola Trail on the pews. So with that, family, going forward. Again, preceptor of the African language program at Harvard, Boubacar Diakité identified writings on the pews as an Arabic type of writing and that the writers may not have been Muslim. This needs to be very well understood for the family who is stuck on the Arabic Hebrew concept and trying to be like, well, you're trying to say that the church was full of Muslims. No, even the Muslim brother came through and said, from Mali said, even if you find Arabic on the pews, it don't mean that they're Muslim. Even if you find Arabic on the pews, it don't mean that they're Muslim. And that's because that at the time, the lingua franca of West Africa was Arabic. And if you were going to learn how to read and write in Arabic, you were going to learn and read and write the Quran from the Quran school. And they knew you didn't have to be a Muslim to learn how to write this, but that was the material you learned how to write. This is what it was. So like here, we're gonna learn the alphabet and a couple of basic stories and whatnot, right? We get some workbooks that have some child stories that we write out. Okay, cool. Practice writing, got you. At that point in time, you were practicing the Quran. That was the subject matter. Not that you had to be a Muslim. And again, there is no God but God, and God of humanity are not something that a Christian would be adverse to writing. Now, the concept of Muhammad is the messenger of God, that was probably written by a Muslim, if it in fact it is there. I have not seen any pew that would have that language on it. Muhammad is the messenger of God. So I'm not going to sit here and say that that's on the pews or I've seen anything like that. I have definitely seen a pew where it looks like La ilaha illallah is on there. And I've definitely seen a pew that says that looks like Surah 114 ayah 3. So for me, I'm making the claim that both those things are on the pews because I'm seeing it for myself and I'm seeing scholars back the two. Again, Boubacar Diakité is the preceptor of African languages program in the Department of African and African American Studies at Harvard. He is a linguist with specializations in phonetics and phonology of Mande languages. He was born in Mali, West Africa, where he did his undergraduate work in bilingual studies at the University of Bamako. He received his master's in linguistics and African studies from Indiana University. He is currently a doctoral candidate in the same fields at Indiana University. He studied Arabic, French, English, and German. In addition, he is certified in Ngo, Bamanankan, Maninkakan, Julakan, and Mandingo Khan instructor. He has also attended the second language acquisition certificate program for African language instructors in Madison, Wisconsin. Boubacar has several publications on Bamanankan phonology issues. So he's published as well in his field. And even though I'm butchering the names of the languages he knows, right? Check out what they look like, fam. Because again, this is the language that he is certified in teaching. And it's a modern West African language that was made in the 19th century, but it's based off of the Arabic script. It's based off of it. So we got the West African brother from Mali, Harvard scholar, linguist, Arabic, all them things. certified in a West African Mandate language writing system and teaching West African writing systems, translating the Quran into these writing systems, etc., whatnot, right? You really got to look into what he's saying. And so what he would know about West African Arabic is something completely different than what Professor Yosef would know. Even though I would still go out to say that and say that he does have a BA in Arabic. He did undergraduate work in Arabic as well. It's going to be completely different than West African stuff. And again, my man, Boubacar Diakite he can teach multiple West African languages, Mandé based, right? And again, you got the Mandé, Mandinka that came across and had the Arabic script with them. We have songs in the Gullah dialect that are Mandé songs. So I would more so trust what he's saying than someone who's not from that area, right? But on top of that, what did Professor Yosef say? He said that he assumed that Arabic type of writing meant Arabic calligraphy. So in trying to even disprove Boubacar Diakite, my man, or Maury Brown literally confirmed it. And Maury Brown literally confirmed it when he called the PBS people. You know what? Against my better nature, I'm going to play that joint. Against my better nature, I'm going to play that joint. I'm going to play that joint. Against my better nature, I'm going to play that joint. Because y'all need to see this. So are there people that claim stuff on all sides? Yeah, there's tour guides that claim all kinds of stuff, right? But listen to what's said here.
News fam, this just in. We have rare footage of PBS producers of the show called The Black Church discussing the writings on the pews at First African Baptist Church in Savannah, Georgia. In this exclusive video, PBS producers reveal the shocking circumstances which led to the writings on the pews being tentatively identified as Arabic.
When I had a chance to speak with the producers of the Black Church documentary, they shared with me some very telling information. That there were also those who were there at the church during the time of the filming who also became apologetic in their defense of cursive Hebrew. My name is Will. I'm here in Georgia, and the documentary was very informative. It was a lot of parts in there that was new and things like that, and very educational. I just had one quick question. I was wondering, because I'm very intrigued by history and culture and languages and things like that. And there was a particular scene in the part of the First African Baptist Church. There's a lot of symbolism there. I've gone there very frequently, taking my kids there and things like that. What was the process like of going through and looking at the pews and things like that and kind of examining and honing in on the one particular pew? What was the process of examining that? And I think they said something like it was a form of Arabic or something like that.
Yeah. That was a very labor and process. We first of all we brought someone, Babaku, did I say his name right? Boubacar from Harvard.
This is Arabic type of writing.
It's amazing that it survived.
Oh, yes.
I'm sure that if Christians knew that it was a Muslim, they would have just painted it over.
Maybe. But those who also wrote this They may be Christian themselves, but for them, religion is a continuity. Different ways of maybe worship, but it's the same God, the same principle. And it was written to be a legacy for the future generations.
Even before we go there, we had actually had members of someone from the church take pictures of the pews, and we sent it around to a lot of, I don't even know what's the terminology, people who study linguists.
Right.
Translators. So first of all, figure out, if it was Arabic, and if it was, what did it say? Many were like, it is Arabic, but it's a earlier version of Arabic that we do not know. So Boubacar, who was from, I think, West Africa, was able to him and someone else were able to actually translate what it was. And so we brought him down, and as we were filming, there was another woman who is a member of that church who was saying, no, that is Hebrew. So she believes it's just it's a cursive version, there's such a version of cursive back then, of Hebrew.
Our best guess is our best guess from historians and linguists is that it is Arabic, but because of all these things, it's a huge challenge to translate what is actually written on those pews.
Okay, was there a, I think you said Boubacar, I think he translated it? Because the reason why I was asking is because, that's kind of been a tradition there in Georgia for like many years of it being cursive Hebrew or whatnot. So I can see why the person, I guess maybe a member or something, would come and say that. Did Boubacar come up with a translation of what it would say? Because that's very intriguing.
As you said, I was literally like looking through emails, and I think, Shanisha, does anyone remember? I'm trying to scroll through emails.
I'm also trying to remember the name of the scholar that I sat down with. Again, this was like two years ago, but when we looked through it, there were mentions of like potentially Allah, and then I had some other writings that would have transcribed some of what the other images would correlate to, but I couldn't tell you like what a full sentence was. There are certain like symbols that correlate to certain words. And again, this is also there's a continuity, and the same that Boubacar had mentioned, between Aramaic, Hebrew, Arabic, and the West African dialects of Arabic. And so there are lots of overlap. And so the whichever scholar is recognizing Hebrew in these letters is not incorrect, as much as any scholar of West African Arabic who notices symbols that are familiar is also correct. This is an archaic language that is not used, and again, it's like from folks who are mainly illiterate. I couldn't tell you that it's not a contemporary form of Hebrew or Arabic. It's an ancient form, an unused form of either of those languages, or a combination of both, because there's a tremendous amount of overlap in both languages.
So I did just find the email. So the scriptures, the ones that we sent him of the pews, the side pews, there's like one that looks like a squiggly line is Muhammad is his messenger, and the other one that he translated was no God but Allah.
Wait, the church was promoting Mohammedanism. That's not what First African Baptist Church Pastor E.K. Love D.D. said. In fact, the church spoke about the importance of First African Baptist Church members preaching against Mohammedanism and what it called pagan, heathen religions. As the following reference reads, and it reads, finally, using our schools as a powerful instrument, our denominational family is to wage an uncompromising war with superstition, beat back the forces of paganism, and make religious conquests in China, in Japan, in Asia, in Africa, even in Rome, the very heart of Catholicism. When we remember that the 1,400 millions of souls belonging to the human family, only 1/4 of them profess the Christian religion. And when it's remembered, Mohammedanism, with its sword and its Quran as the ensign of its power, holds powerful sway in the southwestern part of Asia and a large part of Africa. Yea, when our missionaries in foreign fields must admit the fact that the followers of Buddhism and Brahmanism comprise more than 1/4 of the inhabitants of the globe, and that the Roman Catholics, with their order of Jesuits overrunning every portion of Africa to which they gain access, then you will not fail to be impressed with the magnitude of the obligation which lies at the doors of Christianity, and how Herculean must be the efforts on the part of the Baptists of this country to subdue and to supersede the various forms of pagan religion as they flourish in the heathen land.
Now, real quick, family, on the screen, hold on.
Of Jesuit.
Yeah, on the screen, it says the history of the First African Baptist Church from the organization January 20, 1788 to July 1st, 1888, page 42, right? So I love that Benaiah is consulting the church history there, right? So let's think about that concept and go back to what the sister just said on the producer of the documentary said. They said that Boubacar Diakité stipulated that there was overlap from the Hebrew and Arabic in West Africa, and stipulated that any scholar that sees Hebrew is correct and any scholar that sees Arabic is correct. That's what they said Boubacar was talking about. So Boubacar Diakité was stipulating, yeah, they might not be Muslims. They could have been Christians themselves. And there's overlap with the Hebrew and Arabic. Sounds very similar to what Anon heard. Sounds very similar to the source that Dante brought out. So why is there this beef about Hebrew or Arabic? When like first and foremost, like, so the Gullah language is a Creole language. It's a blended language, right? So we're talking about language blending right now. It's not one or the other. So again, Boubacar is saying, yeah, he was seeing overlap with Hebrew and Arabic letters, which is not something inconsistent in West Africa. That we need to pause and hit the brakes right there, fam. That doesn't go against the Israelite claim. That actually helps you prove the thing, fam. That literally helps you prove the thing, fam. And my man's from Mali, right? Timbuktu is the area where they were having the libraries and whatnot, where there was a lot of Israelite overlap, etc. And there's a large Mende influence on the Gullah language and on the Geechee people themselves and whatnot. So this dude talking what he's talking is very significant because he's also confirming. Listen to what he's saying. He's also confirming the Hebrew overlap of the letters, man. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. And back to the 1788 to 1888 concept. Okay, if we're going to go back that far to go push a false narrative, because no one's saying that there was Muslims coming out the church or that the church is pushing Mohammedanism. That's gaslighting, fam. You just played the clip of the dude saying the opposite, saying that they could have been Christian and that if you see Hebrew there, if the scholars see Hebrew, they're correct. We're just not seeing any scholars point out any Hebrew right now. That's all there is to it. And we need to be looking at that and trying to verify that because it could be there. It could be there. But the concept of soletreo is a Latin form of cursive Hebrew. Like Anonymous said, he saw cursive Hebrew on there, but not soletreo. I asked him what kind. He's like, I'm not sure, but it ain't soletreo, fam. We could be looking at a West African form of cursive Hebrew. We could be looking at West African Judeo-Arabic for all we know. Judeo-Arabic, fam. That was not uncommon in North Africa. That was not uncommon in Spain. So for all my people who are stuck on being Black Portuguese Jews, this shouldn't be an issue for you. Judeo-Arabic shouldn't be something you run from. Arabic shouldn't be something you run from. Tell me the Moors weren't speaking Arabic in Spain. I'll wait on that one, fam. And again, speaking or reading and writing Arabic does not mean that you're not an Israelite. Does not mean that you're not a Jew. None of that. It means that that's the lingua franca that you're using. Like, so us reading and writing English does not make us British. It is the lingua franca that we use at the moment. It is the lingua franca that we use. So I'm going to do this, fam. I'm going to play my man playing his own credentials, speaking about his own credentials. And then I'm going to play a video of him giving a documentary, or a lecture at the university he teaches at, where he's going to be speaking about Morocco. And it's actually a wonderful, wonderful presentation. And I really think you should go look at what he has to say. Because one of the things that he spoke about was the fact that there was in the full interview. Let me do it like this. Where am I at with this? Okay, I'm sharing that one. Let me stop doing that. Do I got anything else to share in this? Oh, I sure do. Yeah. Hold on, my fault, fam. This is going to be a little bit longer than I thought it was going to be. But so this is PhD historian Sylvian Diouf, right? She's French Senegalese, and she has multiple books about diasporic history and whatnot. Please go check out her work. It's fantastic work. Fantastic work. In her book, Servants of Allah, African Muslims Enslaved in the Americas, she speaks about this stuff here in certain chapters, particularly chapter 4, right? It's on literacy of the Arabic literacy of certain slaves, pages 159 to 209. In this chapter, there's over 20 examples of first-time slaves and recaptured slaves from Mandingo, Hausa, Fulani, and Yoruba descent, writing manuscripts, letters, and petitions using Arabic script and language. Arabic script and language, right? With examples of African languages and Creole languages also being written in West African Arabic script. These writings being produced in Brazil, Panama, Trinidad, Jamaica, the Bahamas, and the U.S., i.e. in Georgia, North Carolina, Maryland, and Mississippi. Now, I do a full presentation where I go over each breakdown of each instance when it's like 24 at least, right? But here's a quick summary that I want people to pay attention to. Because in this whole argument with Professor Yosef and them trying to use his information and say that, oh, well, the Arabic don't look right. The Arabic don't look right. Well, there was this concept that a lot of people were saying, that Kelly was saying, and Maury Brown was saying about, like, yeah, well, you know, being that they were like slaves and runaway slaves, etc., whatnot, you can't expect them to write the language perfectly, whatnot. But then it wasn't even scales given to the Arabic, and that doesn't make sense. Particularly what I was saying about trade languages, family. Just pay attention to that part. But this is what she has to say, Sylvan Youth, in her book, chapter 4, when it comes to the literacy. Like, so page 160, paragraph 2, it says the literacy rate was high in Muslim Islamic Africa. Was high. Page 162, paragraph 1, some Muslims could read or could write perfect Arabic, as well as Hausa, Wolof, and Mandingo. Others possessed only a few rudiments of the written word and a clumsy calligraphy. I.e. that their Arabic wasn't perfect. Some people were high-level scholars in Arabic and wrote fantastic Arabic. Some people had just learned how to write Arabic and may have only known a couple of phrases and had to hold on to them for decades, and their skills diminished. But there were multiple instances of people in the Low Country who were literate in Arabic, given in the book, right? Page 163, you have Salib al-Ali, a Fulani Muslim from Mali who could read Arabic. Page 163, you have Omar ibn Said, a Senegalese Fulani, right? Wrote an Arabic autobiography and Surah 110. And Surah 110 is going to become extremely important, family. Please keep that in mind, because I'm going to bring that up in a comparison in my next video. Page 170, Bilali Muhammad, Fulani from Sierra Leone, on Sapelo in Georgia, where there is another First African Baptist Church on Sapelo. He wrote the Bilali manuscript. Page 180, you have London and Mandingo. He wrote, as a slave, he wrote the Gospel of John in Creole, i.e. the Gullah dialect for down there, in the Arabic script. 1844. This is before the church gets built, fam. This is before First African Baptist Church gets built in its modern form. They went from the wooden joint to this one. This is when they were in the place prior to the one that they built now. Page 177 or not 197. Mahmoudou Aishati wrote a petition in Arabic script and Creole and other African scripts. So we're seeing to where you can use Arabic to be written to write in Arabic, to write like Creole, i.e. English, right? And other African languages. And again, Arabic, Creole, African languages. That's what you do with the lingua franca. That's what you do with the lingua franca. Manuscript, page 181. Manuscripts. Again, there was a lot of manuscripts, large manuscripts being found amongst the Muslims, and you could find out like what parts of like what forms of Islam they were practicing. And most of them were on some Sufi type stuff. But they're finding manuscripts to where Surah 114 is in them, that are being passed around, that they're finding all over the place. So one thing I want to talk about, family, is we got to start having our arguments in good faith. Like if we want the any other community, like the urban apologists or any other community, period. If we want them to take us seriously, we have to also represent their arguments in good faith. You're going to hear me painstakingly try to go through the labor of understanding an opposing argument and representing it properly. And if I misrepresent it, I will apologize, because I don't want someone to misrepresent my argument, so I'm not going to misrepresent theirs. So we need to start offering and playing our part in dialoguing in good faith. Because if we're mischaracterizing people's arguments, we cannot complain when they mischaracterize ours. It's just that simple. We cannot complain. We cannot have the moral authority to complain if we're mischaracterizing theirs. It's just that simple. Integrity is a two-way street, period. Period. And definitely, if we're raising our hand calling ourselves Israel, fam, we cannot be coming out here with the lack of integrity, fam. Because again, our job is to be the Most High's representatives on the earth, representing a living representative of His ways, walking, talking, and breathing. That does not make sense without integrity. We got to have honest scales and balanced scales. That's what our scrolls tell us to have. Like we're bound by our scrolls, which are a constitution, to have this kind of integrity. We can't skirt that. We got to own that. That goes for all of us. 1,000% me included. 1,000,000% me included. Like I'm saying, we can't be false representatives. We can't give false representation of anybody else's arguments. We have to be very clear as to what people are saying and how we represent their arguments to other people, because we would not want them, again, doing to others as you would have them doing to you. We would not want them misrepresenting our arguments to anybody. To anybody. We want to be the kind of people, fam, to where like when we know, like when our supposed opposition is not in the room, they still know that we're telling the truth about them. They know that we're characterizing their properly. They don't got to worry that like if we're not there or they're not there, that we're telling falsehoods on them, right? That's integrity, fam. That's integrity. That's the integrity of the Most High that we need to be showing the world, fam. So they can be drawn to the light of our eyes. again, we can't be showing false hypotheticals to people misrepresenting their positions, because we would not want to do that. We would, and furthermore, we can't put them in documentaries that we're charging the people for. And again, I'm not taking a shot at the documentary. I'm talking about the people giving information to the documentary, supplying the documentary. Because again, the documentary is trusting y'all. The people producing the documentary are trusting y'all. They're trusting y'all to do your part. They can't fact check and double check everything. That's what I'm saying. I'm not even tripping on them. Go rent the thing. Go check it out. See if what I'm saying is false. But we can't be misrepresenting people's hypotheticals, etc. Because that, again, we wouldn't want that for us. We wouldn't want that for us. You know what? I'm not even going to get into this part. This part's not even necessary. Because I already beat the dead horse on it. Abu was saying something else with it, right? He was saying something else. So, again, I'm just going to say it like this, fam. We can't be scholastic crabs in a barrel. I was talking about this on my other stream, fam. We can't be scholastic crabs in a barrel. And right now, we got a lot of that syndrome going on in the community and whatnot. And it's not beneficial for internal conversations, and it's not beneficial with conversations where our community is talking to other communities, because particularly when in the conversation between different communities, we need to be respected as having integrity, fam. Scholastic and otherwise. We cannot be scholastic crabs in a barrel. That has a negative effect on everybody. Everybody. As a matter of fact, you know what? I would like, most people didn't watch my 5-hour video that I did. I'm not mad at you. That was a long video. But this is what I'm going to play what I had to say about scholastic crabs in a barrel real quick. Y'all let me know if you don't hear it. You know what I'm saying? And that's where we run into this issue right here. Scholastic crabs in a barrel with spiritual Stockholm syndrome. Scholastic crabs in a barrel with spiritual Stockholm syndrome. Man. A crab in a barrel that's pulling you down doesn't care about you. They just care about them. It's a self-idolatry concept, man. They could be like some ninjas and whatnot and help each other climb out. Nope. They got to pull you down. They got to pull your argument down to make their argument seem more viable. They don't got any proof. They don't want to stand on it. And they don't want to be challenged. They want to stand on you to make their argument, not on their facts. And with spiritual Stockholm syndrome, fam, oh, don't hold me accountable. You know, we just came out the Christian church where we don't do accountability, fam. Don't hold me accountable. Well, I'm sorry, fam. Well, like, you're saying that you're an Israelite, though. The book says keep you accountable. Don't it? Pretty sure it do. At least mine does. And so then we get into this, fam. This is what I mean about clout chasing versus kingdom building. Because either you're doing this thing, either you're calling yourself an Israelite out of pride, like you want to be precious and treated special and elevated and all them kind of things, or you recognize that you're volunteering to be a representative of the Most High, and that your first job is to cleanse and purify yourself so you can be a worthy vessel of such a job, not justify your own bad habits with a confirmation bias, not look for good news about your bad habits. And so this is where I want people to really take this in, right? I'm gonna leave this here because we're going up on 5 hours in this piece. All right. 5 hours in this piece. A scholastic crab in the barrel has a real megalomaniac concept to them, right? Like, it's like, again, they don't see how they're affecting other people. They see how other people affect them. It's all about them and what their idea is. Their idea is the most important thing in the world. Nothing else matters.
Am I the meanest? Sure enough. Am I the prettiest? Sure. Am I the baddest mofo low down around this town? Sure. I can't hear you. Sure.
And one of their main arguments is emotion versus logic. A scholastic crab in a barrel is not going to start with a logical argument, right? They're going to start with a fallacy of appealing to emotion to begin with. It is a clear sign of a scholastic crab in a barrel. And when they run into intellectual arguments, they don't know what to do. They got to scoff or they got to gaslight, one of the two.
I know who can beat you. Who said that? Beats fine, who said that? I got him, Joe. I got him, Joe. I got him. Here you go, Joe. Here's the most. Who's badder than the Shogun?
Bruce Leroy, that too.
Bruce Leroy. Bruce Leroy. Well. If it ain't serious, Yosef, Leroy Green. I've been waiting a long time for this, Leroy. I am sick of hearing these bullshit Superman stories about the Wassa legendary Bruce Leroy catching bullets with his teeth. Catching bullets with his teeth? Nigga, please.
The secret awaits eyes, unclouded by ambition.
What?
Those who are bound by desire see only that which can be held in their hands.
See? Now it is mumbo jumbo like that.
Yeah. And so when they can't deal with the intellectual concept, they got to gaslight and go straight to making you submit to these arguments from emotion.
Who's the master? I can't hear you, Leroy.
And so when they try to make you submit, you got one responsibility at that moment, right? You got to let them know that the Most High also dwells in you. That the one thing you submit to is the Most High, not anybody's weak arguments. Not anybody else, fam. The Most High and his truth.
All right, Leroy. Who's the one and only master?
And after you let them know the Most High is in charge, that they're not the Most High, and they were all underneath the Most High, sometimes you got to bat away them arguments, man. Like, what did my man say? Hit him with a 3-piece. And if they still keep coming for you, fam, sometimes you got to brush off the scholastic crab in a barrel and put him back in his barrel. Yeah, fam. I thought it was better to play that than repeat all that. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, we got to drop those childish ways. You know what I'm saying? Like it was cool to do them things when we just left the church, and we didn't know no better. We're trying to figure things out. But now when we're trying to grasp on the culture and our constitution and these scrolls, etc., whatnot, we have responsibilities in this thing, fam. So does that mean we're not family? No. That means that we got to keep each other accountable as family. So with that, fam, I'm gonna play. Like I said, I'm gonna play my man breaking down his credentials, and I'm also gonna play, like I said, a small lecture, so you can audibly verify that this is the same individual, and that these credentials are the same credentials, and I'm not making this stuff up. But I'm also not gonna dox the individual. But yeah, I'm gonna play these two videos, and then I'm gonna call it a day, fam.
Thank you, Mr. William, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be with you today and be with your group as well. And I hope now my conversation with you will be beneficial to you and to your friends and group members. As thank you again for reading the short bio. As, you mentioned, I was born and raised in. Did my undergraduate studies there, and came to the United States in to finish my graduate studies, and I got my master's at the University of in Morocco. I studied sociolinguistics, which is the study of language and its impact on society, and the study of the society and its impact on language, and also studied language and gender, especially the use of gender and politeness vis-a-vis, male and female, especially in Arabic societies and Western societies. And also did my studies also in code switching, which is the changing of codes based on the changing of the environment, or the changing of the people you are talking to. So my study was mostly focused in Moroccan society, and how Moroccan people code switch from one language to another based on the situation that they are in, or based on the people that they are talking to, either their age, their status, or their gender. And of course, as you mentioned, when I came here, I did my master's degree in sociolinguistics as well, and started my journey teaching Arabic after, and started teaching at the University of, I'm sorry, at and at the same time, or a year later, started teaching as well in University of both of them are private colleges, and one of the few liberal colleges in and in 2012 I was offered the job at the university to kind of start their Arabic program because of my experience in starting Arabic programs in those previous universities, and the rest is history. I just want to thank
Sorry about that. Technical difficulties. So real quick, I'll be sharing that file. Sorry about that. Bam. Bam.
I just want to thank everybody for coming here today, and please don't forget to get your, attendance verification at the end of the presentation. I know it's lunchtime, so we'll try to make this, quick. Try to give you an idea about, what Morocco has been going through in the past, 50 years, and also, open the space to questions, from you guys to learn more about things that we might not be able to cover during the presentation. Just a quick, we talk about tradition and modernity, and we know from experience about, countries, especially in the East, that in the past, century, try to move to the modern side, but at the same time, hold on to the traditional, history, as far as, for example, Japan or Korea. And we also have, examples from the East, also in the case of Saudi Arabia, a country that hold on to its tradition and try, to move on to the modern, era. So in Morocco, I want to, show a quick presentation about the steps that Morocco has been trying to take to move to, the modern world, but at the same time, try to, play carefully, with its traditions and hold on to it as much as possible. But just a quick introduction about, Morocco for the people who are not familiar, about the country. Morocco is located in North Africa, as you can see from the map, and on the Mediterranean Sea and on the Atlantic Sea as well, and it's bordered by Algeria and West Sahara from the south and east. The ethnic groups that constitute Moroccans are Arab Berbers, about 90%, like 54% Arabs, and the rest is Berbers, and also 1% of other ethnicities. The population since 2014, it's about 32 million inhabitants, and the language that are spoken, we have different languages. Arabic, basically the official language, and Berber languages. We have three language dialects that are also in the new constitution are official languages. We also have French, the French language, which is also the language mainly of business, government, and diplomacy. The religion of the country is 99% Muslims, and 1% that include Christians, Jews, and Baha'is. About 6,000 Moroccan Jews that still live in Morocco. The government type, it's a constitutional monarchy, so the king has a lot of power, and Morocco got its independence in 1956 from France. It was also occupied by Spain. The economy mostly is based on agriculture, mainly barley, wheat, and citrus fruits, grapes, vegetables, olives also, and wine, and industries, especially phosphate, and also food processing goods. A quick history about the country. When we talk about tradition, there's a lot of history behind that, and since prehistoric time, it was known that the area that constitutes today's Morocco has been occupied by people since 19 BC, and during the classical period, it was considered a Phoenician colony, and during the 1st to the 5th century, it was part of the Roman Empire as well. And after that, during the 6th century, it was a part of the Byzantine Empire. After that, during the 7th century, it was what we know today as the Kingdom of Morocco, and it became an Islamic country with many Islamic dynasties that ruled Morocco. Starting from the 7th to the 11th century, you have the Idrisid dynasty, and then the Almoravid dynasty, Almohad dynasty after that, and between the 13th and 15th centuries, you have the Marinid, and also you have the Wattasid dynasties. Most of, if not all of these dynasties are Berber dynasties, and then after that you have the Saidi dynasty, and the present dynasty that ruled Morocco is the Alawite dynasties, and that's an Arab dynasty. It's also worth noting that Morocco has been occupied between 1912 and 1956 by the French and the Spaniard. In modern Morocco, King Mohammed V, who ruled Morocco during the French occupation, and also shortly after the end of the occupation, has been considered as a traditionalist. He basically studied in the royal school in Morocco, and most of his studies was with languages, Islamic studies, and other for example, history, math, science, but mostly his studies was traditional studies. So during his rule, Morocco was very, very a traditional country, and at the end of his rule, probably about a year before he died, he tried to modernize the country by appointing some of the Moroccan young students who graduated from French schools during the occupation. He tried to appoint those graduates into key position in the government, trying to modernize the country. Unfortunately, he passed away, and after him came King Hassan II, who ruled the country basically until 1999. King Hassan II was a very enigmatic person, but he was also somebody who graduated with a bachelor degree in laws from University of Bordeaux. So he, in a case, was westernized, but at the same time he did all his studies before college at the royal school. So he was also traditionalist in that sense of the word. He tried to modernize the country, but his actions were very, very small. Mostly, he created a lot of hospitals, also built a lot of universities and schools in the country. But the most important thing that he did to modernize the country is to build a lot of dams, around the country, and focused on agriculture as the main basic for Morocco's income. After his death, his son, King Mohammed VI, took power in 1999. King Mohammed VI also, did all his studies in the royal school in Rabat. But after he graduated from high school, he went also to France and did his PhD in law from the University of Nice. Unlike his father, he is more of a modern king than his father, of course, than his grandfather. He did really one of his first steps that he did that was very shocking to Moroccans is in 1990, just after he became king in 2002, he got married to a commoner, an engineer. His wife, who's a princess now, her name is Selma. was just a commoner who was an engineer, and he, fell in love and married her. Before that, in Morocco, nobody knew the princess, the wives of the kings. They were not shown on TV. Nobody knew their names, and they always were from, the same royal family. So this was a very, very big step that, the king did to, show that, he's trying to modernize not just the country, but also modernize the royal institution. Another step that, and even after that, and since the time they got married, you can see, from pictures, that Moroccans have on, on TV or on their magazines or newspapers, the king trying to, show that he's a modern king, and just like every other Moroccan, showing his love for his family. And also at the same time, in the picture, you see there are, pictures where he's, dressed in traditional clothes, like for example this one and this one. But there are also pictures where, he's dressed up in what we call Western clothes. So there's always that, that play between, traditional, outfits and modern outfits, and also the play between traditional image and a modern image. Is the king traditional? Is he modern? Is he more modern than traditional? Is he more traditional than modern? That's something that the king has always been trying to play. But it looks from the steps that he been taken since he became king, that he's trying to show that he's more modern than traditional. In 2004, he took a big step also, trying to modernize the country. And the family code basically is a code that basically focus on family law. Laws that has to do with marriage, with divorce, with kids, with everything that has to do with family. Morocco have had a family code since even before independence, but it was really, really traditional code, Islamic code, that was based on interpretation of Islamic scholars that lived in the 11th century. So it was really, really traditional and old. And I think, some of Arab and Muslim countries still have codes that, date back to the 11th century. And I think the Moroccan king, at that time figured out that, it is time to change this family code, to modernize it. So he, put a referendum there to, modernize this family code, and Moroccan voted on it, of course, by a big, big majority. The most changes that were, or provisions that were in this family code, these are just some of them. But as you can see, for example, the new provision was both spouses share responsibilities for the family. Women are man's sister before law. That was not the case before that. Basically men have, more responsibility after that. Once a woman comes of age, she does not need a marital tutor, a male relative, usually the father who speaks of her behalf. Women cannot be married against their will, though if they wish to designate a male relative to act as their marital tutor, they may. And that was not the case before, It only took, the father to say, okay, you can marry, my daughter, for that, young girl to be married. So that really, makes a big difference, in women's rights in Morocco. The minimum age for men and women to be married now is 18. That was not the case, before. You can see women, little girls, getting married while they're 15, maybe even younger. Man may only take a second wife, as most of you know, like in Islam or most Muslim countries, men are allowed to marry 4 wives. This new provision came to say, you can marry 4 wives, but there should be some rules. So men may only take a second wife if a judge authorizes it, and only if there is an exceptional and an objective justification for it. The first wife consents, of course, and the man has sufficient resources to support the 2 families and guarantee all maintenance rights, accommodation, and equality in all aspects of life. Moreover, a woman can stipulate in her marriage contract that her husband might not take a second wife, and a first wife must consent to the second. The first wife might also petition for divorce if the husband take another wife. These provisions didn't exist before. A man can just, decide he wants to marry a second one, and he was free to do so with no provision whatsoever. One of the provisions is that the right to petition for divorce belongs to both men and women. Before, it was only the man who, has the right to divorce. The procedures for reconciliation and mediations are encouraged. A man may not repudiate his wife without the permission of a judge, and she and her children must accord their full rights under the law. Divorce proceedings take place in a secular court rather than before a religious official. So most of divorces cases before this were done in religious officials, in front of a religious scholar. But after this provision, every marriage or divorce has to be done in front of a secular court. If a man does not fulfill his obligation according to the marriage contract or cause his wife harm, such as abandonment or violence, she has the right to file for divorce. The new law also provides for divorce in situation of mutual consent. Children's rights are protected according to the international conventions Morocco has signed. Priority in terms of child custody goes the first to the mother, then the father, then the maternal grandmother, or to whomever a judge deems the most qualified relative. Children in custody must be given suitable accommodations, the terms of which must be settled within a month of any dispute. The parents who gain custody of the child keeps the house. Before, basically, if was the man who keeps the the children because he had the the authority to do so. But this one changed everything for for the rights of the children and rights of women. Children born outside the wedlock have the rights to the acknowledgement of paternity. That was not the case before. And a married couple may negotiate an agreement separate from the marriage contracts regarding the management of assets they acquire while married. It doesn't negate the principle of separate marital property. This, family code was really a first in the Arab and the Muslim world, and it's still a first in the Arab and Muslim world, including, for example, Tunisia, which has that country that has a family code similar, if not a little bit better than the Moroccan one. There's still a lot, needs a lot to be done in this family code. A lot of, especially women's rights organization asking for, the abolition of, marriage from a second or a third or a fourth wife. But I think at this time, I think the king is smart enough not to go for something like that with what's going on in the Arab world and Islamic extremism. I think it will be he wants to to die or kill himself if he does that. That will definitely be against his dynasty and his ruling. So this was very applauded. It was very applauded by a human rights organization, by the European Union, and also by the United States as a big step toward women's rights, especially in Morocco. Another step that were taken. It was during the Arab Spring, as most of you know that in 2011, most of the countries in the Arab world were going through what we call today the Arab Spring or a revolution, and Morocco also got its share of protests, not revolution. People during that time went to the street and started protesting not against the monarchy but against better rights and less power for the king. And I think the king was smart enough and modern enough to propose some constitutional changes to modernize the country. And he also put a referendum in front of the people, and the majority, more than 90%, voted yes for that referendum, which has some constitutional changes like the one that you have here. For example, the prime minister would be named from the largest party elected to parliament. That was not the case before. the king was the one who appointed the the prime minister. The prime minister would be able to appoint government officials and minister. Also was not the case. The king basically appointed all government officials. The prime minister would have the power to dissolve parliament. Before, the king had that right, and the judiciary would be an independent branch, and that was not the case. This really, calmed down the, most of the Moroccan society, and basically was a first step, toward not having, a monarchy like, for example, in Britain or in other, European country, but it's a first step toward having a democratic country. A lot of, some of the Moroccans still not happy about the changes. They want more, but this is, the steps that were done by the king to move toward that modernization. There were a lot of also, decrees that, this we're talking about the political side, of the modernization that have been done, done in Morocco in the past decade. For example, the anti-corruption decree, the right to work and the right to health, and also specialized road behavior code. If you've been to Morocco, you will definitely know that driving there is a crazy thing, and it took a lot of work to come out with a specialized road behavior code. A lot of Moroccans still not happy about it, but it was a really good step toward modernize the country and put a rule there that will, modernize the behavioral code that Moroccans didn't have before. On the economical side, in the past 10 years, the government of Morocco took a lot of steps to modernize the country, and one of them was building the largest port in Africa in the city of Tangier, and also building a free trade zone that, help Morocco to compete with not, just African countries, but also compete with the European countries on the Mediterranean. Also, there's a big work in renewable energy, and Morocco is spending a lot of money and bringing a lot of investments from especially Gulf regions and Europe and also the US, and investing in renewable energy with the date in mind in 2020 to have Morocco's half of energy produced by renewable energy. So this is something important that the government has been working on for some years, and the date is to have 2020 Morocco half of its energy produced by renewable energy. Also, Morocco signed a free trade agreement with the US. I think one of the, or the only Arabic country that has that free trade agreement with the US, and also signed an advanced status agreement with the European Union, which gave a big chance to compete and also modernize its economy. When it comes to infrastructure, for the past 10 years, Morocco has been investing in infrastructure, and Morocco has, I think, about 47 airports. Only 11 of them are modern, but they're now, I think, spending and investing a lot of money in modernizing the other one. They have more than 60 ports. The biggest one is in Tangier, of course, one of the most, or the biggest one, also one of the biggest one, also in Casablanca. The rail system also is very advanced compared to African countries, and building also trams in bigger cities to help with transportation. So the government have been spending a lot of money investing in infrastructure to get the country compete with the not just African countries but European countries in the 21st century. We talked a little bit about modernization. in politics and economy. But when it comes to the tradition, you see it on a daily basis everywhere you go in Morocco, especially with for example the outfits. Like for example, Moroccans are very keen in still wearing their traditional outfit. For example, here you see the kaftan, which is the traditional outfit of female Moroccans, and here, for example, the jalaba, which is the traditional outfit of Moroccan males. And this, clothing, you see it not only, in holidays, for example, but you see people wearing it on a daily basis, either in government offices or institutions. So anywhere you go, you see people still holding to that tradition. You also see it, in, for example, architecture or interior design. Like you see buildings that are very modern, but once you go inside, Moroccans really make sure to decorate their homes according to the Moroccan traditional, decor, especially the mosaics and, and also, the traditional, like for example, tables as you see them, they're all traditional. And also you see in food, people very keen into preserving their, gastronomy, their traditional gastronomy, and with all the, international, restaurants, chain restaurants that exist nowadays in Morocco, Moroccans still hold on to their traditional food and still eat it on a daily basis. For example, like couscous, one of the main dishes in Morocco. That's something that Moroccan basically eats every Friday. So at least that's the Friday dish. So people after they go to the mosque for the Friday prayer and come back, that's their traditional dish to have. Of course, there are other traditional dishes, like for example, tagine, that most Moroccan eat on a daily basis. One of the things that you see also tradition plays a big role is in weddings. Weddings are still done in a traditional way, either when we talk about rich families or middle class or low class family, they still hold on to their tradition, and especially in weddings. Brides and grooms are still they still wear traditional outfits. As you can see here, these are traditional activities that are done during the ceremony. Traditional music, traditional food, traditional interior design. So everything is done in a traditional way. Also, you see the tradition being important when it comes to music. So even if music nowadays, with the world being a global village, you see people listening to different music from all over the world, but Moroccans still hold on to their traditional music, and there are many kinds of traditional music in Morocco. And nowadays, Morocco is trying to give more opportunity to those kind of music by doing a lot of concerts to different kind of music, at the same time trying to be open to the modern world. And I think Morocco nowadays have a concert, probably one of the biggest in Africa, that invites singers from all over the world to come and sing, and it's a free festival that lasts for 7 days. A lot of singers from all over the world come there, to sing. This also brings me to the question of modernity and tradition. A lot of Salafis, a lot of Muslim Salafis in Morocco were not happy about that festival in the beginning, and they're still not happy about it because they see modernity as something inferior. They see it as something against their tradition. So they always protest against that, festival, and trying to make sure that give priority to Moroccan music rather than opening, our country to, Western music. So there is still that debate, happening nowadays in Morocco between tradition and between modernity, but it looks like modernity is winning because it comes from the top. The monarchy is trying to modernize the country, and the monarchy has been ruling, the country for a long time, and I think Morocco will definitely take more steps to modernize its economy, to modernize its institution, and to modernize, its customs and way of life. There'll definitely be still people who are not happy about that modernity, but I think in the meantime, Morocco was successful into moving step by step, carefully, step by step toward a modern world without creating problems with the people who are traditional. So thank you very much for your time, and if you have any questions concerning what we talked about or what I didn't talk about, please feel free to ask. We have about 10 to 15 minutes, so please feel free. So thank you.
I like the way this feel, yeah. Let my soul cry, yeah. Minister, we gonna speak from the heart on this one. I'm performing lyrical funerals, no obituary. I killed your boy and brought him back to life, pet cemetery. My anointing not based on attendance at a seminary. Scarlet witches, they attracted to the visionary. Everywhere I go, I bring the word with me, missionary. Soldier drafted in the war machine, military. Pay attention, what I'm saying to you, legendary. You got the demeanor of a front desk secretary. That mean you take the calls, but you don't make the calls. That's why you hate, cause ain't nothing fake about me at all. Now I dare you try to say that with a straight face. My delivery in tip-top great shape. I'm too advanced for you, light years, space age. No evolution for you cavemen, stone age. I'm a thoroughbred, rock solid. I came from the bottom to the top, rock climbing. I grew up in the hood, pros and cons. That's that full court pressure when the ambulance roll out their stretch. Why can't you see it's not logical? And you live diabolical. Boy, your point of view smaller than the hair follicle molecule. This for all of them that follow you, smoking all of them barbecue. When I pull up, your voice don't correct itself with no auto-tune. I got a whole nother level that I can enter whenever I gotta deal with the devil. I pick a whole nother method. I hear a whole lot of yapping. They wanna see my reaction. I'm really out here in the community making it happen. I don't really think they understand the dilemma. They ain't looking at the man in the mirror. Can't say it any clearer. The plan is very simple. It's time to start playing in the temple. Before somebody come and put the can on your temple. Reaching like a baby with his hand for the nipple. The Grand Reaper coming with his hand on the sickle. In the van coming with a ram with it. When the van come and get him. I am so glad that I changed up. Made it out of where I came from. Watch for the slide and the hook of the slow ball, fast ball, and that change up. That ghetto lifestyle, it changed us. Go back to visit, it ain't changed much. Only difference is now the way that my brain process information. And Satan, been after my license day one. Let me say something. Only reason that I'm still alive today because God's grace is amazing. Just another raisin in the sun. Dream deferred when things occurred. Now you get served right on the curb like a lemonade stand. I just gave you the benediction, let the whole church say amen.